This is a tutorial for an intermediate level speedrun of Super Mario 3D Land for the Any % category. The strats that I recommend are a little more advanced than a total beginner might want to try. However, even if you are just starting out, I would recommend watching the movement section because it's going to be helpful to show you just how Mario moves through the levels. Also, the star medal route section is going to be helpful as well because the beginner and intermediate star medal route is actually the same. And also I list which levels have Tanuki leaves in them. And as a beginner, you're probably going to be dying or taking damage a lot, so you definitely want to know where the leaves are. On the left you can see the outline of what I'll be going over, and in the description or the comments I'll put timestamps for all the sections and also for all the individual levels if you just want to see how a specific level is done. If you are a complete beginner to this game and you just want very simple and very easy ways to get through the levels, you might want to watch Cosmic's video. It's titled Super Mario 3D Land Speedrun Video Guide Easy. If you're just looking for a simple way to be able to consistently beat the game in one sitting, then that might work for you. If you followed these super easy strats, you could probably get a speedrun done in about an hour and 15 minutes or so. The difficulty range that I'll be aiming for in this tutorial is a little bit of a more advanced route. I'll be giving you strats that I think would be helpful if you're trying to get a time of about 1 hour. If you're just starting the game and you know that you'll eventually want to go for better times, then you might want to start learning more advanced strats from the beginning. It's kind of up to you. For people who are just starting out speedrunning this game, a common goal that is moderately ambitious is to get an Any % run finished in under an hour, and it's kind of a very natural milestone time to aim for. It'll take some extended practice and it'll be fairly difficult to pull off, but it's not insanely difficult. If you did a run that perfectly executed all the recommended strats for each level in this tutorial, then you would actually get a time that's well under an hour. But you can't expect to not lose time somewhere. So even if you're going for a certain time, you want to plan to lose time. That's just how this game goes. You can't really expect to get your target time if you're using strats that, if done completely perfectly, would give you the time that you want. This is an hour-long game with complex movements in 3 dimensions, so nobody is ever going to play all 36 levels perfectly, no matter what strats are employed. This also means that none of the levels have to be played in exactly the way that I recommend if you're going for a sub-hour time. You have some leeway to pick strats that seem to work for you, or to maybe go for easier strats in some levels. If you want to see how other people have done speedruns of this game, you can go to speedrun.com and you can find the page for Super Mario 3D Land. If you want to see examples of what people have done to get a time that you want to get, then I would recommend going to the leaderboards there and looking at some of the runs that are around the time that you want to aim for. On speedrun.com you can also find forums for this game, and if you have questions about the game you can ask them there. But actually a better place to ask any questions about the game is really the Discord server for this game, and you can find the link to that in the forums on speedrun.com. And on Discord you can find a lot of people who like to talk about this game, and really this is the best place to ask any questions about speedrunning this game. There will be 2 versions of this tutorial. The first sections will be the same up until when I start to get into the recommended strats for each level. The shorter version will show the recommended strats without commentary, while the long version will go into exhaustive detail for every level. And this right here is the shorter version of the tutorial. There will be a longer version, it's not done yet, but when it is done I'll put the link to that video in the description. In this version, like I said, I'll play out all the recommended level strats and also any alternate strats, and I'll also show all of the leaf locations in every level, but that section of it will be done without commentary by me. The longer version will have very detailed commentary where I'll pause and explain for every level. Sometimes I'll talk for nearly 10 minutes over the video of a level that's less than a minute, so that version is really if you want the exhaustive details only. If you're on this version, then you might want to continue to watch this, and then if when you get to the levels, if there's anything that's not clear about how I'm doing a certain level, then you might want to switch over to the longer version where I'll be giving detailed commentary of how to do each level. But again, that'll be an extremely long video, so if you do want to switch over to just look for a specific level, there'll be timestamps in that video as well, so you can just click on the specific levels, so it'll be easy to switch from one to the other when that version gets done. Now I'll move on to how the timing works. Timing for the speedrun starts when you select the file on this screen here. The cutscene at the beginning is part of the time of the speedrun, and it should be about 43 seconds before you've selected the file and when you have to press A after Peach says Mario. And this cutscene, every time you reset, kind of sucks for this speedrun. It's one of the parts that I don't like about it, but it's more than made up for by the fun movement and the fact that there's essentially no RNG in the run at all. So the timing starts when you select the file. You can do it either with the touchscreen like that, or you can do it by just pushing A on the file. If you're using live split to do splits or some other timing method, you should select the file and then hit the button to start on your keyboard or whatever at the same time. Most people split after every level, and they do it either on the audio cue when the music hits the last high note, or the visual cue when Mario jumps just before this. As long as you do it at the same time, it doesn't really matter, and really only the first and last split matter for the timing. The last split and the end of the time for the speedrun is at the end of the second castle of World 8, and time stops as soon as you hit the flagpole that Peach is tied to. Splitting is very convenient in most cases because the cue to split is a few seconds after you have to be pushing any buttons on the 3DS, and then after that there's a few seconds as well to get your hands set back up. And the last split is really the only time when you have to split, pretty much when you're still pushing buttons, when you're still guiding Mario to the flag post. So that may often be a little bit late if you're not using like a foot pedal or something. The leaderboards only track times at second intervals, since for an hour-long run there's really no need for like milliseconds or anything. And it's pretty easy to retime if you mess it up. When you first select it, you can see like in the bottom left there's a white flash on the file, and that happens either when you push the button or like a frame after, so you can get the beginning pretty easily. And then at the end, as soon as you hit the flagpole, or maybe it's like one frame later, Bowser's flag will disappear and it gets replaced by black smoke, and then 1 or 2 frames later Mario's red flag appears. So if a run is at the margins of a second, you could easily retime it from the flash when you select the file to the black smoke when you hit the pole that frees Peach. So to set up a file to do a speed run, you'll have to select a new game, and you see that when you do, you're asked to assign a Mii to your file. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that your Mii actually has a black shirt. At least for the any % category, the black shirt is the one that you want to use. For the other categories to speedrun in this game, there are pluses and minuses to the different colors. But for any %, you always want to use black. So when you set the favorite color, make sure you pick black. And then you can see when you're doing your file select, you'll be able to see what color shirt you have. The black shirt doesn't make any difference in terms of the gameplay at all. It doesn't matter what color shirt you use, but it does affect how many medals and what type of box you get for the mystery boxes that are in the overworld. So you can see here, you can see the color of the shirt in the lower left. And then after you've selected your Mii, you actually don't start the timing from this screen, but you soft reset. And if you're going to be doing a lot of runs, then you probably want to have at least 2 different files, so you can just copy and paste. And that way, if you're going to be doing a lot of runs and you know you're going to reset, then whenever you reset, you can take the file that's not the one that you used, copy, and then paste it here. And that's actually going to be faster than erasing the file, then going back, selecting the Mii, soft resetting, and setting it up like that. So you want to have at least 2 files set up so that you always have one that's ready to go. It would be faster if you had 3, but a lot of people like to keep their completed game saves so that they can practice all the levels or so they can show off their stars. But you just want to make sure that you always have a fresh file, so every time that you After restart, you can just copy and paste, and that's the fastest method. So that should be pretty much everything you need to know in terms of setting up. And then again, for the timing, as soon as you select the fresh file, that's when you would start the clock. Now, I'll briefly mention the star medal route, and then we will get to movement, and then finally to the strats for how to play each of the individual levels. This document shows the star medals that I recommend getting if you are going for a sub-hour time. Next to each level is A, B, and C, which refer to the first, second, and third star medal in each level. We need 100 star medals to unlock the last level, and we pass by 109 if you count the mystery boxes. So you'll be getting almost all the medals from most of the levels. The red color indicates a level where you do not get every star medal. There are 36 levels in all, and except for 7 of them, you'll always be getting all of the star medals. The difference between a beginner medal route and the most advanced will only be a few medals, since there is little choice in any case. A more difficult route would collect 3-4 star medal C, and then skip 8-5 star medal C, or skip 7-ship star medal B if you want to get really crazy. I wouldn't go for 3-4, or at least I wouldn't personally recommend it, if you're going for a time of anywhere near 1 hour. Some people like to go for it a little bit sooner, but I wouldn't go for it until you're going for like a 57-minute time. This document also has an L to designate where there is a Tanuki leaf in a level. It's important to know where there are backup leaves if you die or take damage. When I go through the individual levels, I'll also point out where every leaf is. I've also included R to indicate red coin trails that lead to leafs, although most of these are not useful for the speedrun, at least if things are going well. Partly this is because if you already have a Tanuki and you need a backup, red coin trails will give you a 1-up mushroom, not a backup leaf. But if you're just Big Mario, which usually means the speedrun has gone poorly, and you need a leaf, then there are some red coin trails that will give you a leaf. Some give fire flowers, and some give boomerangs, neither of which are useful for speedrunning. So I'll point out the red coin trails that yield useful leaves as I go through the levels. Now I'll talk about the general movement of the game before finally getting to the individual level strats. One thing right away is that for most levels, you should be holding run in the direction that you'll be moving as the level loads. You can actually start moving a little bit before Mario becomes fully visible as the level fades in from the yellow screen. Not sure if you could tell there, but it's a very slight difference. You should also note that there are different buttons that are the same thing. So the Y button and the X button are the same. They're both the run button and also the swing your tail button. And then A and B are the same. They're both the jump button. Doesn't matter which one you use. They're also the flutter button. And then the shoulder buttons, L and R, they're both the same. They're both for crouching. So there are different buttons that you can use to get the same result, so just find the setup that works for you. If you watch speedruns of this game, you'll notice right away that people are almost never just running. This is because, unlike lots of Mario games and other platformers, holding run in the direction that you want to go is actually not the fastest way to move. Instead, you cover the ground with various jumps. If you're just starting out, you can go to a wide open level like 4-1 to practice the different kinds of jumps. 1-1 also has some open areas that are good for familiarizing yourself with how to do the different types of jumps. So the main type of movement is twirl jumping, since this is the fastest method of covering flat ground. And the twirl jump is kind of confusing if you're just starting out, but twirl jumps are the best, and you'll be doing them all the time, so you'll quickly get used to it. To do a twirl jump, you hold run in the direction that you're going, then you crouch, and then you hit run again, and then finally jump. It sounds complicated, and it's kind of a weird button combo that's not in a lot of other games. But once you get the hang of it, it's simple. So the buttons that I use for twirl jumps is to hold Y the whole time, direction that I'm moving, R to crouch, X to run again, and then A to jump. So my thumb is actually pressing 3 buttons at the same time, and I never release run. Different buttons might work for you. You could also do twirl jumps with just using 1 button for run. Then you would run, crouch, and then release run, and then re-grab it before you jump. That'll work. The advantage of doing it with buttons that I use is that I use the A button only for the twirl jump. If you do it the other way, then you're using the same button for all the different kinds of jumps. which makes it more likely that, well, maybe not for you, but for me when I tried to do it that way, it made it more likely that I'd twirl jump when I want a long jump and vice versa. But again, you just want to find the button combos that work for you and stick with those. Sometimes you also want to crouch twirl into a twirl jump, which I'll call an extended twirl jump. This is for when you're covering a distance that's longer than a single twirl jump, but not enough for 2 twirl jumps. You also do it just to have a twirl jump that covers more ground, like off of a ledge. So for this jump, you want to start to do a twirl jump, but you delay pressing the jump button. So you hold a direction, run, and then you crouch, hit run again, and then you jump, which sounds like the twirl jump, but you want to delay a little bit between pressing the run button and then pressing the jump button. If you did it right, you can hear Mario say woohoo or ha-ha, which he doesn't actually say if you're just doing normal twirl jumps, but when you extend it, he does that vocalization. I do it a weird way in terms of the buttons that I use. I do it like a 2-stage jump rather than a delayed jump. So I do the inputs for a crouch twirl, then I do the inputs for a twirl jump, rather than just delay pressing the jump button. So the buttons I use is holding Y in the direction, then I hit and hold R, then I hit X, then release X, and then hit it again. And it doesn't really make any difference whether you do it this way or the other way. The way I do it, it adds an extra button input, but it also helps me to kind of keep the rhythm and timing with when to press the jump button. It doesn't really make a difference because either way you can be holding the R or the run button the whole time, so it doesn't matter which one you do. Just find the method that works for you. If you're just starting out, it's probably more natural to just delay pressing the jump button. It kind of feels weird when I do it now, but that's just because I learned it the other way when I thought it was the only way. So again, if you're going to be covering ground, it's faster than doing a twirl jump and running for a bit if you do the crouch twirl into the twirl jump, because the crouch twirling speed is faster than the running speed. You could also do it the other direction where you do the normal twirl jump and then you do a crouch twirl at the end. It's going to be equivalent. Doesn't matter which one you do. The other method of covering like this weird amount of distance is to actually take a few hyperspeed steps, which is when you release run after you do a twirl jump, or also a long jump. Will also give you some hyperspeed steps. As far as I can tell, and I've tried to time it frame by frame, the two methods are the same speed, whether you're doing a crouch twirl or hyperspeed steps. Or if there is a difference, it's so slight that you can't really tell. The advantage to do it the hyperspeed way is that you can turn corners quicker. You can't really turn corners well with a crouch twirl. You have very limited options in terms of the angles that you can take. So if you're going to be crouch twirling and then going around a corner, it's going to be a little bit faster to do the hyperspeed steps. But note that the hyperspeed steps run out pretty quick. And you can see the different animations where Mario does the fast walking, and it also sounds different. So the steps come quicker when he's doing the hyperspeed compared to the normal running. Also, if you're just going to be running over a patch of ground, but it's too short to do a twirl jump or any kind of jump, then you could probably throw in just a crouch twirl, because again, he moves faster when he's crouching and twirling compared to running. So for a crouch twirl, you just hold the run, direction, crouch, then run again. You can't really chain these together quickly, because he starts to kind of just slow down and spin in a circle. But yeah, if you're just going to be covering the ground and you're not comfortable jumping, you can just add in a little twirl, and that'll go a little faster. So the other major type of jump that you're going to be doing a lot is the long jump. And doing long jump is simpler than doing a twirl jump. So while holding the run button and the direction, you just crouch and then almost immediately jump. And again, you can use R or L to crouch, you can use X or Y to run, B or A to jump. Doesn't matter in the slightest. You can also flutter, like this. Although you don't really do it over flat ground. You just kind of do it when you need to cover a gap or do some kind of skip. And also, if you're doing like a long jump and flutter to clear some gap, you want to avoid changing directions because this makes you lose momentum. See how he like immediately slows down when you change directions? So sometimes this will actually be the difference between making a jump or not, whether you hold the angle and he maintains the speed, or when you shift angle, he starts to quickly lose speed. So that's another thing to keep in mind. So if you're just covering flat ground, the twirl jump is going to be a little bit faster than the long jump. It's a very slight difference, but it is different. The twirl jumps are faster. Though the long jump is still considerably faster than just running. And you can chain together long jumps as much as you want, just like you can chain together twirl jumps. There's not usually much reason to chain together long jumps, because if you're covering that much ground, it would be faster to do some kind of twirl jump thing. Also, if you're not fluttering, the long jump covers less ground than the twirl jump. So sometimes you might have room for a long jump, but not have room for a twirl jump. So you want to keep that in mind. The twirl jump does jump longer than a long jump. Unless, of course, you flutter, then obviously the long jump covers more ground. You can twirl jump through enemies, and you can also long jump and swing your tail through enemies. Well, most enemies, not every enemy. Also, if you're doing a twirl jump, you kind of have less room to maneuver. Let me exit here so I don't run out of time and die. So a twirl jump, you have less ability to change your angle or to pull back, whereas if you long jump, you can like go into a flutter, you can change your angle better. So the twirl jump is more committal. Another thing is that you need to have at least a little bit of a momentum before you long jump or twirl jump. If you're at a dead stop and you try to quickly do the inputs to long jump or twirl jump, a lot of times you'll do this little hop. So if you're at a dead stop and you try to hit the direction and jump and crouch at the same time, you'll do a little thing like this. It doesn't really come up that often in a speedrun because you're not usually at a dead stop, but it does happen sometimes. So just note that you do need a little bit of momentum in some direction, or else you'll just kind of spin out like this. Another jump is, well, not really a jump, the end of a jump is a ground pound, which you do by just hitting the crouch button while you're in the air. You can't ground pound out of a twirl jump. Once you're in a twirl jump, you're committed to doing the twirl jump. You can do a ground pound out of a long jump, but only if you flutter first. So that didn't even really give me enough height, but you can long jump, flutter, and then ground pound. There's also a side flip and a back flip, but these aren't really used much for a speed run. For the side flip, you just run in a direction, then quickly pull back and jump again. For the back flip, you just crouch for a little bit and then push jump. So more important is the regular jump. And for this jump, you just push the jump button. There are differential heights compared to how long you hold the jump button. And this is relevant sometimes. And then if you have the tanuki, you can flutter out of a normal jump. You just continue to hold jump, that's all. Another thing that's similar to the regular jump is if you do a crouch twirl into a twirl jump, Mario actually jumps a little bit higher than if you just do a normal jump. It's not much difference, it's hard to tell, but you can actually tell, for example, in 6-4 when you're getting the first star medal, if you just do a regular jump, you can't grab it with your tail, whereas if you do a boost jump, you can. Also, if you've just done a twirl jump, then you get the extra height boost if you jump immediately out of a twirl jump. So for the inputs to do a boost jump, you basically are holding run in a direction, then you hit crouch, then run, then jump again. It sounds kind of like a twirl jump, but the key difference is that you have to release crouch before you hit the jump button. The buttons I use are Y, X, R, and B. This way I have a different hand motion and I push different buttons compared to a twirl jump, which makes it less likely, for me at least, that I'll do the wrong jump. So I use A for twirl jumps only, and I use B's for all other jumps. Long jumps, regular jumps, boost, wall, side flip, back flip. It makes the most sense for me, kind of makes it like Super Mario World, where you have A for the spin jump and B for the regular jump. Or at least that's how I was thinking about it when I started learning. That's just what makes sense to me. Again, you can use different buttons, whatever works for you. I don't like this music speed up. Also, you don't have to wait for Mario to complete one full turn to do a full 360 before you jump. He'll jump no matter what direction you're facing. So sometimes you'll do like a very quick crouch twirl into a jump. Also for twirl jumping, it doesn't matter what direction Mario's facing when he comes out of it. He'll always continue to go in the direction that you're holding. And then wall jumps. So to do a wall jump, what you want to do is jump into a wall and then you jump again. It's very simple. To do an optimal wall jump, you want to hit jump like a frame or maybe 2 frames after you hit the wall. If you don't, he'll start to slide down a little. You can hear the animation of him sliding. You can also see like the dust from his hand. I don't think there's ever a case where the difference between an optimal and suboptimal wall jump means that you're going to die, but obviously it's slightly faster to immediately jump off the wall. If 2 walls are close together, you can continue to jump back and forth and gain height like that. And then if they're perpendicular like this, you can continue to gain height indefinitely. And then, but if you're just jumping against one flat wall, you can't gain height. So you might have an initial one where you can wall jump and get over. But if you do one wall jump and you don't get over, then no matter how many wall jumps you chain together, you can never surmount the top of that ledge. So that's one thing to keep in mind. It is useful sometimes to be able to keep continuously wall jumping. Like for example, if you mess up the skip in 7-5, you might have to continuously wall jump until your ride catches up with you. Another type of jump is the backwards long jump, which has no point at all. It's simply to add some unnecessary swag to your runs, but some people like to do it. So you run in a direction, and then you jump, and then you turn back the direction that you're facing, and then as soon as you land, you continue to hold that direction, and then you do the inputs for a long jump. And then Mario will jump the direction that he's not facing. And then you can also chain them together if you want. I'm not very good at them because I never do them. Let's see if we get another good one. There we go. So again, there's no reason to do it, but some people like to do it. So sometimes when I go through the individual levels, I'll talk about the position of the joystick in terms of the face of the clock. And that's just the shorthand that I've learned to use when thinking about, what angle I need to be for which trick. So 12 o'clock is straight up, which is usually the background of the level. 3 o'clock straight to the right, 6 o'clock straight down, 9 o'clock straight to the left, and then there are varying angles between them. And then getting the perfect angles for the jumps in any level really, it's usually going to be different if it isn't one of the 4 perpendicular angles, especially if you're switching from one off angle to another off angle. And a lot of times if you do a level certain ways that might seem like it's perfect, but you're getting a slower time than you expect, it's because you didn't set the perfect angles. So for most sections there's, you know, one ideal angle that you want to take, and then many angles that are slightly off, and often small enough that you won't even notice the difference. So at this point you should know how to do the different types of jumps and movements that'll be necessary for a speedrun. I want to briefly mention overworld movement. So one thing you want to do is when you're selecting the next level that you want to go to, you want to hit the touch screen either with the stylus or with your finger, because Mario actually moves at a different speed if you select the level with the joystick. I guess it's noticeable. So that's the selection and that's the run. It's a very slight difference, but you'll be selecting a lot of levels, so you want to do it with the touch screen. You can't do it when you're at the end of a world and you want to move to the next world, obviously, since there's nothing to select. So when you do that, you have to use the joystick. Also, when you're in the levels and you're on the ground, you're not in the air, you can exit the level by hitting start, and then you can either go down and hit A or hit with your button the button to get out of the level. So this might happen if you get hit and you lose your Tanuki and you don't have a backup and you don't necessarily want to reset, but you can just exit the level. It doesn't work if you die. So if you die and you don't have a backup, you're going to have to soft reset probably, unless you happen to be in a level that has a leaf that's close to the start, like 2-1 for instance. So to soft reset, you hit both shoulder buttons, L and R, and then you hit start, and that'll reset the game. And you can see it actually doesn't take that long to do a soft reset. So usually if you die like at the start of a level, you might lose, you know, less than 20 seconds even. So the game, when you do this, will revert to its last save, and it saves after every level. And then of course you'll have whatever power-ups that you have. Oh yeah, you can't, so you have the ability to exit a level if you get hit and lose your leaf, or you can actually lose both leaves. So if you get hit, or even if you get hit twice, but as long as you don't die, then you will actually have your leaves when you exit. But what you can't do is you can't go into a level that even if you've already beaten the level, you can't go into the level, grab a leaf, and then exit, like you can do in Super Mario World, for instance. It would be nice if you can do that, but you would have to complete the level to get that power up. And the same thing for medals, like if you miss a star medal, you can't just go into a level, get the medal, and then exit. You have to complete the level. Now we'll move on to the strats for the individual levels. This is an intermediate level tutorial, so I will rarely show you the absolutely fastest strat for the levels. Currently there is no advanced tutorial that shows the most up-to-date elite strats, but if you want to see the most difficult and fastest strat for a particular level, you should watch a run by Zelda Cubed or Cosmic. Those are the two best players of this game. What I'll do is show you the way to play a level that I would recommend if you are going for a time of about 1 hour or less. You should also note that in this game there is rarely only one way to complete a level in roughly the same amount of time, so you should tailor these strats to your own goals and playstyles. None of the strats that I recommend are necessary for getting a time under an hour. So if something is too hard and you have a way of doing a certain part that is much easier and a little slower, then you might be well advised to do it the easier way. For example, a lot of times I will recommend doing a few hyperspeed steps to make something very slightly faster. This adds another layer of something that you might mess up, and you could easily get a sub-hour time without ever worrying about hyperspeed, or for that matter, boost jumps or crouch twirls. Again, there will eventually be a longer version where I am commentating over the levels if you want to hear the exhaustive details for every level. When that video is finished, there will be a link to it in the description.
Let's go!
I can get this.
Mamma mia! Display!